Welcome to the Living Your Genius show with me, Donusia Lipinski, Unlocking Your Power Within. This show ignites your inner spark and empowers you to live a life filled with purpose and passion. Join Dr. Pat and me as we embark on a journey into the transformative power of your thoughts, inner genius, and creative imagination. In each episode, we deep dive into the realms of self-discovery, practical insights, and actionable strategies to unlock your full potential to thrive in all aspects of your life with grace and ease. Whether striving to overcome challenges, cultivate resilience, or pursue your passions with purpose, the Living Your Genius show is your go-to place for personal growth. Let's deep dive and unlock the power within to manifest the life of your dreams.
We've got a show. This is the show. I wish I would have done the show with Donusia before I was on the call I was on before, right before the show. Why?
Why?
I'm going to do this. Dream big, act boldly, and ditch the how. I can't even begin to tell you what today's show is about because, Donusia, I was talking with my team right before here, and we were looking at things we're putting together. And I just want to open up by saying this. Ditching the how is the difference between dreaming big and not doing anything with it, and dreaming big and act boldly. And you're taking this conversation on to tell us and help us understand that when we get hooked on the how, we get hooked, not on the wow.
I love that.
Right? But we get hooked on bowing to a force that would have us play either not to win or just play not to lose. And that is an energy that doesn't align. So tell us about this idea, this notion of what does it mean to unlock our boldest dream, and how have you done that?
Well, so I think that all of us as kids used to have like big dreams, right? Things that we were going to do. And then we were told we can't do them, or that we're not good enough. Who are you to do it? And so we get into even like, can we even dream? We forget how to even dream or to imagine a life that we would absolutely love, that like lights us on fire. And so when we get into, well, let me just say this, the graveyard is the biggest, is the biggest. Oh, I forget what the saying is, but the graveyard really is a place where all the dreams that could have been die, right?
Yeah.
They go
Yeah.
with the person who had the dream but never realized them. So when we get into the how, along with other things, but the how can totally stop us because we let the world of conditions and the situations and facts take over, and we don't tap into that inner power that each one of us has within us. I love, and it has to do with our belief system, right? If we think that we're only like we can't do anything because of the economy or because of politics or because of whatever's going on, then why? I mean, it's just too hard, right? We let all of our past dictate our history. But I love this quote, and you and I were talking the other day, Dr.
Yeah.
Pat, and it's like, wow, I hadn't thought about this with Alice in Wonderland, right? And so I started looking at Alice in Wonderland a little bit more closely because the way that you were talking about it, that the message in that show and going down the rabbit hole. And I said, well, let me just take a closer look at that. So I was looking at what she had to say about the how, or about believing. And I love this quote. She said, the only way to achieve the impossible is to believe it is possible. And so, Dr. Pat, what is it about about Alice in Wonderland that like got you got me going on it? It's like, wow.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because the only way to achieve the impossible, believe it's possible. Because if you don't do that, then you're staying in another P. Do you want to know what that other P is? It's called procrastination. You know, I wish Carly Simon, when she did that show, it should have been called procrastination instead of anticipation, right? Because I love the play on words. I mean, a little old school. I'm giving a throwback now. Let's do a throwback. Carly Simon, I don't know, Emily, if you can find it, but that song Anticipation is the antithesis of procrastination. Because when you're thinking about it, this is Alice. It's an anticipation, right? It's believing and the power of that belief as leverage for you to take that next step.
Absolutely. There was, well, speaking of songs, I was walking on the beach this morning and being inspired by the beauty of the sun and how she's always there for us. And I was thinking about our conversation today, and the song Dream the Impossible Dream, right, came into my mind. And I'm thinking, right, we all think that impossible, it's I am possible, right? But again, we get into our limiting beliefs and into our smallness, and we don't really take the action. We don't, I mean, first we have to have the dream. We have to know what really lights us up, right? And so before we can even get into dreaming or dreaming big or acting boldly, we have to know what it is that we would love. But you know what? Most people don't even ask the question, what would I love? And so I totally agree that procrastination, delay, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it when the kids are grown up or when after I get my bed, like all that stuff. Like I've done that. I've done that. I thought I wanted to impact the lives of lawyers, right? I wanted people to understand. I was passionate about wanting people to understand how we're all immigrants, right? It's not about politics, it's just about who we are as a country. And if
We
I
are
thought,
immigrants.
right, all of
I mean,
us,
not everybody. There's some people that were here, right?
but
But for the
even
rest
they
of us,
came
yeah,
from somewhere, right? And even, I mean, when you think of it, we all came from somewhere, right?
we did.
I mean, anyway, and we all have that in common, right? We all came here and we're all gonna, but I was just thinking about how when we don't allow ourselves, well, oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back to my little story about the advocacy and when I delayed my dream and what had happened, because I thought if I could just help people understand who we are, what our current laws are, I was positive that I would open up some minds, right? That was like my passion.
Mm-hmm.
But I was busy being an immigration lawyer. I was a mom. I was having issues with my marriage, and I just said I'll do it later. And so I was going to do it when my son graduated from high school. He was 16 at the time. I was going to do it when he graduated from high school. I was going to do it later, when I had more time, when he graduated, all of that stuff. And then life happens, right? And for me, the life that happened to me that totally changed my life is that he left. He didn't graduate from high school. He graduated from life. There's that wonderful quote by Beckwith, by Reverend Beckwith, that says, we're either pushed by pain or pulled by a vision, right? And so many of us, before we're willing to take that leap of faith, something happens, something dramatic in our life. It could be a bankruptcy, a change of jobs. It could be
Yeah,
life not turning out like we wanted it to be. I mean,
yeah.
we all have those kinds of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. I love that quote by Michael. I remember having a conversation with him. Oh my God. I don't have time to go into it, but we're defending our trademark, the Transformation Network. Believe it or not, somebody's trying to claim it. Seriously, people, come on. And so I had to go back. I had to go back 20 years and pull things up. So I came across a show that I did with Michael. And I love that quote. And I said to him during the show, so here, to your point, to your beautiful point, and what you just said, I said, Michael, what do we push by and pull by? So say that quote again. Go ahead.
Pushed by pain
Or pull.
and or pulled by a vision.
I said, okay. I said, I get the pain part. I said, but I said, but I got to tell you what works for me. I haven't always had the vision, but I have had possibility. So can you change your quote, please, for me? And he said, no, that's your quote, Pat. And he said, that's what you stand for. But let's talk about that. Push by pain or pull by possibility. See, what's another word for possibility, or what's embedded in possibility, and why is what you're talking about today? So let's go back to today's show. This is Dream Big. What allows us to dream big? What allows us to step into that world? What allowed J.K. Rowling to, like carry that bleeping manuscript around with papers flying? John Lucas, Star Wars, Tom Cruise. I don't care who you are. You go back, all of the authors, anybody. Oh, my favorite, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. Hello, people. Guess what? Pushed by pain, but pulled by possibility. You know what's inherent in the word possibility? Hope. And people don't like to talk about hope because they think it's a little shallow. And I say, well, hope is one aspect of possibility. But possibility and the energy of possibility. And if you step into the world, my company name, Unlimited Possibility, then where are you? Aren't we where you're talking about? Aren't we at the place where if we're in that, how long do we spend on? My friend Dee Wallace was in a movie called The Howling. This is in her honor. How long are we in the how? Howling about the how. How long are we howling about the how? And how does that kill our dream? We can never get off the dime.
So we have exactly. So again, I love that impossible really is I am possible. And it has
That's
to do,
right.
and even more, so hope and really and about trusting the process, right? So if we believe as beings, all here for a reason, right? Like each of us are unique, right? There's not another Dr. Pat, there's not another Danusia. And so like, who are you? And why are you here? And so if we just go along day to day, living our lives, it's comfortable, like there's nothing, life is good, but it's not great, right? And it's so easy to stay in that comfort level of life is good, but we're here to grow. And if we're not growing, this is a saying that I'm sure you've heard, if we're not growing, we're dying. And so the land of possibility, the land of hope, trusting the process. But if we don't believe that we're connected to a higher power, then we just keep on going. In the work that we do, we have like a 5-point test to see whether the dream or the vision is worthy of you, of your soul power, of your life force, of your time. Because you and I don't get another day here, Dr. Pat. Like this is a brand new baby day, no matter what time of the day you started it. It's a brand new baby day. It's always possible, right? To turn and to lean forward instead of living in the past. And so the 5-point test really is, the first one is, does it give you the yes factor? Do you have like the wow, like I love my life, right? Is there the yes factor in it? The second one is, does it align with your core values? Because we all have our values that we live by. Does it align with your core values? And the third one is, does it cause me to grow?
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth one is, Dr. Pat, do I need help from a higher power? Because if you don't need help from a higher power, then your dream or your vision isn't really big enough, or it's not bold enough, right?
That's right. That's
And then
right.
the last is there good in it for others? And so if you get an absolute yes and make a decision and have the clarity that you would love to design and create a life that you love, then as long as you can stay out of the how, because the how's going to say, well, how are you going to do that? You tried that before. It's like the ego, the old brain, right? The old amygdala, right? Saying, how are you going to do that? Like it wants to keep us safe and comfortable, but like we're beyond that.
Somebody asked me the question who I thought was the king and queen of possibilities. It's a tough question. And they asked me that. They were talking to me about my company name, and they said, "Are you that?" And I said, I don't know, like I'm probably like not quite the king or the queen. They said, "Well, can you identify anybody?" And they went through generations, like the X, the Y, the Z. I said, "You know who I think is?" I'm gonna tell you who I think. Greta Thunberg. She's 21 now. But how do we know Greta? Because at a very young age, what was she pushed by? Pain, the pain of watching the earth be damaged. She is a
Oh, Greta,
Uh,
got it.
yeah, she is an activist for justice. And so, yes, when you see her talk, does she look like Angry Greta? Do you call her Angry Greta? You do. But they asked me, why her? I said, well, think about it. This is a young girl who looked at the world of possibilities of what if she had a voice? What could she possibly change? You see, that's how possibility is. But what else did she do? To your point, what did this young girl do? And she's backed off now because why? Y'all are threatening her family. You're threatening to kill her family. And hello, that doesn't work for anybody, but she's not going to go away. Malala Yousafzai, these are
Mm.
people that come from pain to possibility. And along the way, you've got to have a vision. But this is what we're talking about today. And this is important to you because this is part of your own journey. This is what you've done to really come here to the forefront, going through immigration attorney. Now you're a phenomenal coach, talk show host, live streaming video, TV host, all of that. But let's talk about how have you and how do you unlock the boldest dream? Because we know that, okay, howling in the how doesn't do it.
Well, I love your language of howling in the how. I love that. I think I'm gonna write that one down, and with your permission, I'm gonna use it because it's great. And so we talk about a sacred language of your longing and your discontent, right? If you look at Malala, I mean, so what was the longing with that she had? What did she want to change? What did she want to dissolve? And what did she want to create instead? It's like having that burning desire, that passion within, knowing that there's something for you to do. And you're either knowing maybe you don't really know what it is, but you know that there's something you've got to nag, or you know what it is, but you don't know how.
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. In
Yeah.
fact, it gets louder and louder. I
Yeah.
love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "The future belongs," and this is so appropriate for what you just said, Dr. Pat. "The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams."
Yeah.
How
I,
powerful is that?
I'm telling you, but she wasn't in the howling how. And I got to tell you, this is so relevant for me today because whenever you do a show, I always look at it, I always get ready for the show, and then I always reflect and I say, oh, I'm caught in the howling how. That's me right now. And I'm caught in the howling how of how to do something with our network. So therefore, when we're caught in that place, it is the what do you call it? Prequel to procrastination. Howling in the how is the prequel to procrastination. Because if you start to spin, and how am I going to do it? How am I going to get the money? How am I going to get the resources? How am I going to get my family's approval? How am I going to get my boss's approval? How am I going to do this? How am I going to get up today? How am I going to lose 30 pounds? How am I going to get fit? How am I going to eat right? I mean, holy whoa.
Oh, oh,
Exactly. Dee Wallace, you're my friend. Favorite movie, The Howling. Thank you for that. But I mean, that is what we are doing.
and so if we stay in that, we're going to continue doing the same thing over and over again. But the question is, what would you love instead? See, we don't have to know
What would you
how.
love instead? Let's talk about you.
I'm doing what I love, right? I love talking with people.
Bingo.
I love giving people hope, letting people know that the way that we're not victims, right? We're not, and we can choose to be victims. And I don't mean victim in, I mean, we have conditions and we have some circumstances and we have things that aren't our preference in the world. But what do we do with that? Do we
You
want to
know,
stay in that energy
yeah,
of like a feeling contracted, a feeling like, oh my God, this is like repeating the same thing over and over again. This, like how tough my life is. And I respect, so I'm not being callous. I'm just saying that when we have stuff that comes up in our lives, what do we do with it? Right? Do we keep on repeating and going over the same story over and over again? Or do we imagine, this is where the imagination comes in, Dr. Pat. Do we imagine what we would love instead? And so in a situation where, I have conditions, I have challenges, just because we do this work doesn't mean that doesn't mean that we don't have our stuff that comes up. But the importance of this really is just to create a vision of what you would love and to live from that energy, that vibration of what you would love using your imagination,
Yeah.
right? So I need more money, right? Connecting with if that's what it is, then connecting with what it is that you would love instead. And there's really connecting with what it is that you want to do, for example, with your money. And that gets into the why, into what is your passion, and then just connecting. And we don't have to have the answers, but if you connect with the divine, you might get some ideas, and see which one has the most electricity. And there's a process that we're going through, and I'm really shortcutting it, but there is, it's really, when I have all this come up, it's really designing the life that we would love. I would love to reach 1,500 people in the next year, right? With this work,
Mm-hmm.
and just really helping them understand that they're not victims of
Yeah.
their current situations.
Yeah. You know, there's a quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, and I do attribute it to Buddha. There are a lot of people that are claiming that this quote now, but I do believe it's a Buddha quote, and it's one of my favorite. And the quote is, "Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional." And
Mm,
there's a fundamental difference between the two. We don't have enough time for us to Google that for today, but imagine it. You know, we talk about pain in life and what that means, the loss of a child, right? Your journey, the loss of a job, you know, hardship in relationships. You know, there's so many different layers and dimensions to pain. But suffering is a whole different energy. You know, suffering is that kind of thing that it's hard to describe it except you know when you're in it. Because when you're in it, nothing consumes you more than your own story about it. And it shows up in every aspect of your life. It may hold you back from love, right? You know,
right.
it may stop you from speaking out on a job, writing a book, doing a show, you know, taking out a loan. I was talking to somebody the other day, and by the time they were done, I thought, oh my gosh, this is like, I'm not even going to recommend she get a loan for this situation. But then she's done speaking. And I just said, well, do you have the means to get a loan? I'm like, oh, yeah, I had the means to get a loan. I said, okay. Because when you heard her talk, you were thinking, oh my God, she's like one hop away from homeless. But the whole story about her situation, very easy to solve in a little teeny loan, small. But the story was so gigantic. You'd have thought, wow, she's going to need a loan to solve world hunger. And when I finally asked her the question, do you have the means to get a loan? Oh, yeah, I can. Yeah, yeah, my credit's good. And I'm like, stop the suffering, get the loan, take care of business. But
So the
that's the
why.
coach I am. Just saying.
No, because Dr. Pat, you have to, I mean, for the suffering part, you have to feel the pain. You got to feel it to heal it, right?
No problem with that.
But you don't want to stay in it. You don't want to park your tent there, because everything closes in around you, and you're in that contractive position. And when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze, the overwhelm, the delay, really hard to be creative. You can't
Pain
really
is an
think.
opportunity for growth. Pain is an opportunity for growth. We know that.
Absolutely.
What is that? I had a coach like the whole Schwarzenegger, no pain, no gain. I mean, I used to have to do bodybuilding for my sport, the whole thing you do when you're an athlete, right? And you get sick of it. It's like, no pain, no gain. I'm like, okay. Uh, but then my coach pointed something clearly out. And I want to talk about this when we come back from break. He said, but Pat, your body's going to speak to you. And there is a pain from growth.
Mm.
You can't grow a muscle without breaking it down. That's what you do. When you work out, you're literally tearing muscle tissue so that it can grow. So he used to say to me, now look, There's a point by which you know that the pain you are getting has crossed the threshold. You have to stop. That's the line between pain and suffering. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we got lots to talk about. Look, 1-800-930-2819. We're taking your calls. Do you know why? This is not a conversation. When Donusia talks about this, this is passionate purpose. Dream big, act boldly, and ditch the how. Howling about the how. What is that? Commiserating, stuckness. But when we come back, how do we remove the roadblocks? How do you do that? Donusia is going to take us on a journey, removing to fulfill and designing to destiny. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Everybody, I want to tell you we're back. We just can't stop talking. So we're talking over the commercials. We're talking during a break. This is so important. I think we could do a whole show on ditching the how. This is dream big, act boldly, and ditch the how. HOW. I refer to it, thank you, Dee Wallace, howling the how. And we do. We howl it. And so we've talked about already today, for those of you, what does it mean to unlock your boldest dream? You need to go back and really listen to what we talked about with the power of belief. The other thing we talked about is how do you unlock your boldest dream? And I think one of the things, Donusia, you said is to do this, you do Einstein. You can't solve the problem at the level it was created. I am very clear that what he meant is you need to go to a spiritual plane. Okay. Did you ever say that, Einstein? You should have. But before we go into roadblocks to fulfillment and designing your life or designing your destiny, how do people work with you? We need to tell them, how do they find you? How do they work with you? They can listen to all the other shows we've done, all of that. How? That's the one time you got to do the how.
Sometimes
let me rephrase it. What's the best place for people to find out about you?
there is a reason we have the word how in our dictionary, but I love the howling about the how. I love it. So I'm Donusia Lipinski. I'm a life empowerment coach. I love my business. It's Grace and Ease Life Coaching. They can get a hold of me by texting me at 843-340-5083 or DMing me, or just go to my website and schedule a time with me so we can do a clarity session. Because if we don't have the clarity, you can't really make a decision for what you would love. And so having the clarity as to where's your longing? What would you love to have more of in your life? In all areas, and it's not just in the work that we're doing in the world, it's also in our health and our well-being, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. It's about in our relationships. What would we love more of? More passion, to find someone, to have more peaceful. And then the other one is just freedom, like time and money freedom.
Yeah.
And so really just discovering, it's a process of discovery, and then actually creating a blueprint for a life that you love. You got to know, we talked earlier about the sacred language of longing and discontent. And once you answer what your longing and your discontent is, then you can create a blueprint of a life that you would love. But what is it? People have a hard time dreaming sometimes, or envisioning or imagining. And so we ask them to do that.
I love what you do. And I wanted to, part of what you do is what we're about to talk about, but I want to give you a little example. And then I want you to go into that 99 times quote, because I got to tell you, even to this day, my brain doesn't work like that. But I was talking to somebody the other day because I'm hiring an AI expert, let me just call him an AI expert, very specifically. And I was talking with him about a project that Jessica and I are flying back on a plane from doing this impossible thing. Impossible. In my lifetime, never, ever did I imagine, but this is to your point, and there's not a whole lot of time in the show to really go through it. But I had called something in. I had been calling something in 2019. I was calling, raising the level, inspiring me, getting me ready for what we were about to do. Now, this was before COVID. Okay, so let's just say that. But I was calling it in. See, when people work with me, we do calling it in. That's what we do. We
I
do
love
calling it in
it.
exercising.
I love it.
Yeah. So calling it in. Out of the blue, Jane Peralta Forbes used to work here. Love Jane. Says, you got to go to California. I said, oh, why? Am I my school? What are they doing? No, you got to come down to California. Got to come to LA. I said, okay, when? She says, like now. You got to go buy something white. You got to come down to California because you're going to be in a music video. I said, Jane, I don't sing. She said, don't worry about it. You're going to be, I mean, this is the way she was telling me because it was urgent. So you got to get down here. It's a music video. John Legend and his nephew doing a music video for a song he wrote. And I said, Jane, are you, like, right? For real? So what happened to me? I got the what, and she was very clear. Get this, do this. I went into the how. And when I stepped into the how, I got roadblocks. You're going to talk about them. What are the roadblocks? None from Jane, none from John Legend, none from anybody, but I got the roadblocks. Here they were. How am I going to find, this is how ridiculous this is going to sound. This is howling in the how. This is how it sounds. How am I going to find something white to wear? It's September in the Pacific Northwest. How am I going to go down there? I have, blah, 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 blah to do, right? What was underneath all that? I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Why do they want me there? Who the bleep am I? Like, these people don't even know me. So I call my friend Dee Wallace. I call my agent, Gail, and I said, this is going on. And they're like, get the ticket, Pat. So I don't do it. I don't get the ticket. Then Jane comes back and says, oh, and by the way, you're going to interview people. Now I'm like, okay, Jessica, we got to go. All of this, how am I going to find something to wear? You go to Nordstrom's rack. You meet this beautiful woman named Claire. She goes to the rack and she pulls out 10 different outfits in white. She saves them for you. You come and you get yourself a white jumpsuit. And then you look in your closet, you see a white jacket. Why am I saying this? Because I wouldn't have gone. I would not have gone. And I would have missed what I needed to get me to the next level. We had something happen. I met so many pictures. I mean, when you're in a music video with Alfre Woodard and meeting Beyonce's mom and dad, when you are around these people, you have to pinch yourself. But I called it in. I asked for a sign. Do I keep going? Do we build the network out? So let's talk about the roadblocks to fulfillment, because the fulfillment was there. The design was there. And I was gonna shut the door on that because I was howling in the how, and the how didn't matter.
So what yay for you, Dr. Pat.
I was a nervous wreck. But at the end of the trip, here's what happened. This is the AI story. I got on the plane, we came back. I said, Jessica, I'm different. She said, me too. I said, out of my mouth, we have to create AI for the soul. Now,
For the what?
AI for the soul. That's what we are creating. We own the domain. We're building it. But when we came back, we did not get stuck in the how. Clearly in 2019, you couldn't build what we wanted easily. So what did we do? We went to the what? We ran focus groups. So for the rest of this show, I gave you an example of at least 10 different roadblocks. This is what you do to help people. Walk us through fear of failure. Walk us through how we will shut the door on possibility in a faster than you could shake a stick at it.
I love what a beautiful example of shutting down the how, right? And creating the possibility, different possibilities, right, for the answer, because we know that for every question there's an answer, but it depends, how are we going to ask the question? If we ask, why does this always happen to me? Well, that's not a very empowering question, right? But for every question there's an answer. And so you had this, so I love how you set it up. The first thing that I just want to put this in a perspective. You said you called it in, you had a vision of what you would love, right? You didn't know how it was all going to happen, but you had a vision, and there must have been some clarity around the vision, Because when we create visions and we can see it, feel it, smell it, we can actually imagine what it would be like to have that vision come true, having AI for the soul in your situation. And all that happened in the in-between. When we can create a vision and we see it and we come and we live from that vision, that's how we design a life that we would love. That's how we create the blueprint, right? And so we start with gratitude. There's specificity in it. We can see it. We can feel it. It's a present tense. We don't go into the negative. That's the blueprint. But then we have the gap. And what you're talking about is bridging the gap, because then that's when all the negativity, well, how are you going to do it? You're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. How are you going to, you have to get a white dress? Where are you going to get a white outfit, right? All those things, like all those reasons, because your ego, your smaller self just wants to keep you safe. And if your dream doesn't have some fear in it, it's really not big enough. All people that have done incredible things, you, Dr. Pat, so many others that have created visions of lives that you would actually love. If there isn't fear behind it, it's really, it's a goal. So just understanding that fear is going to be a part of it, fear of outshining others, all the ways that we can have fear, right? They're not, but just realizing that that's just a normal part of it. And then having the tools to say, wait a minute, do a pause. A part of me feels like I'm not ready. A part of me feels like I don't have the money. So just a part of me having notice what you're noticing. When you notice that you're feeling contracted or constricted, or how am I going to do this? Just to do a pause, to say, wait a minute, that's just a part of what I'm feeling. But just to know that if you don't have fear, the dream's really not big enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
the fear of failure, it's just an opportunity to learn. And so bridging the gap, listening, and you did, Dr. Pat. You listened to your intuition. You and
Yeah.
Jessica came back different. You listened to your intuition. You were open to the possibilities.
Yeah.
What a beautiful, and so that it's you had the vision, you had the gap, you and you built your dreams with a gap,
Uh,
listening to your intuition, becoming a person of increase, Dr. Pat, right?
And I think this is what you're talking about. This is available to everybody. I want to be very clear about this because I gave you an example of me as Dr. Pat, but I want to go back to a simple example, and I want you to comment on this too. I want to go back in a time as a 17-year-old kid, right? Got a job at the phone company pushing a mail cart, met the most incredible scientists. All of them had PhD at the end of their name. They taught me how to play table tennis. They taught me how to juggle, not very good at juggling. They taught me, I met Arno Penzias. I mean, we had bagels when he became president on Fridays, the Big Bang guy. Couldn't read, couldn't write, could barely talk. I I didn't even know how to set a table till I met Linda's parents and Linda. Let's talk about that kid for a minute, because this is to your point. You know, my mom committed suicide when I was 6. And before she did, she infused me with the energy of love and possibility. My stepmom infused me with the energy of possibility and perseverance. So here's what I want to say to everybody listening. Because if you're looking at me and Donusia and you're thinking, that's just you two, no, no, it's you. It's you as me. A 17-year-old looks at Linda walking down the hall of Bell Labs and looking and saying, I'm going to get a PhD someday. You trust me, barely graduated high school. That's a whole nother story. I'm going to get it. I called that in at 17. I don't come from an educated family. If it wasn't for Brian McGorry breaking the rules at Bell Labs and letting me leave early and forcing me, yes, to get an undergraduate degree, it took me 13 years, none of it would have been possible.
So
I
Pat,
didn't think about the how. I never thought about the how. Even when I applied, I didn't think about the how. How am I going to pay for it? I didn't. As a matter of fact, the only thing that happened was I was rejected by 35 or 36 schools, except one. And Linda sent the letter back. And when I was accepted, I had no idea how I was going to pay for the tuition. I mean, I'm not kidding. I found out in August I was accepted, and I had to be down there in 2 weeks. If I'd have thought about the how, do you know what would have happened?
We wouldn't be here today.
So, how do we go to the dream achieved, please?
It's the commitment. It's making a decision, signing your name to the check of life. I'm doing this thing. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know where I'm going to get the money. We both have the same experience. I didn't know when I went from being a teacher, auto worker to lawyer. I also decided to go to law school. My dad gives me a pipe to keep me safe on the trip from Minnesota to San Francisco. But that's the thing. So when we have a vision, things unexpected and common our thinking appear. You operate at a different vibration, right? We feel much differently when we're feeling shame and guilt and like we're not good enough. But when you're standing in your power and you know that whatever it is that is yours to do in this in at that time in your life, and you live from a place of gratitude, it has to be, if you can see it, it's the imagination, it's the results formula. If you can think it, if you can see it, take action, you've got to take the action on it. And sometimes the action is going to maybe take you down the wrong way, but you don't give up. It's like this is, and what we say is this, whatever's happening is just what it looks like. Well, it's all coming together,
Mm.
right? So when we can and we don't always like what do we call it? Unconscious competence or whatever for people.
I think it's called conscious uncompetence. No.
Oh my God. You know what I'm saying, right? So,
Conscious
but
incom.
it's your willingness. Like
Yeah.
you were given this that only you can do, Dr. Pat.
Can I comment on Emily for a minute? Can I just tell
Yes.
you a little story about her, Emily, who's our producer? I had the greatest experience with her yesterday because I was baffled. We're having to redo an overlay for one of our hosts, right? But Emily is like, I don't think this is good. I think we can, right? So I don't know how. So I go to what? So I go to look up some of the images, right? And I said, maybe what we could do is we could take her banner and then we could put this dynamic overlay on it, blah, blah, blah. And I just sent it over to Emily. Within 3 minutes, maybe 5, Emily had done 3 versions of it, showing how to animate an image that was very plain and comes back with 3 different options. Because we didn't spend 40 minutes howling in the how. It's like, this is what we can use. This is the other thing we can use. This is this. And what did she do? She used her intuition and creativity. And she came up with 3 options. But if we'd have got into the how, I mean, thank goodness for her, like taking the reins and taking that off my plate. But see, that's an everyday example. Isn't that also what we're talking about?
Absolutely.
And thank you, Emily, for that.
So
Because I
people
did not know how.
people talk about if something happened out of the blue, right? But when we're in alignment with what we would love, and it's so we have the clarity. Again, things. I'm going to read this quote to you because it's so appropriate right now. This is by I had it here. This is by Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich. The moment you commit and quit holding back, all sorts of unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance will rise up to help you. The simple act of commitment is a powerful magnet for help.
Mhm.
And so when we commit and we come from that vision, and when roadblocks are going to come up, but if we know that they're going to come up, and that it's going to take us to our next level. So doing this work doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard. No, it takes rigor and it takes discipline. They say that repetition is the mother of learning, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got the opportunity to work with Jim Fan, and he is the coach of champions. He coaches champions, like sports people, that kind of coach, mentally. But his first law in his score practice is self-discipline. And I had a chat with him a couple of months ago where he reminded me of that. And it has taken me 4 to 5 weeks to really embed, imbue, and embrace self-discipline, because the next thing he talks about is concentration, and you must commit to the things that you want to do. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, if you ever watch my grandma cook Sunday dinner, from the minute that woman woke up, she committed. She committed and she acted. I never heard her ask, how am I going to stuff the bourgeois?
So, so, so commitment, absolutely commitment, self-sabotaging behavior, like just being aware that it's going to come up, and the delay, dissuasion, trying to talk yourself out of what you were doing for a little bit, trying to talk yourself out of this incredible opportunity, right? Delay. And then we talk about DEFCON, where you're like, you don't even know where to begin, right? But if we can just like breathe and just connect back to what we would love in our life and take the next step that is ours to take, it might just be a needle mover step, like a 5-minute step. But if we can take action steps every day and commit to taking them, those are game changers, right?
Yeah.
And it, time is it's something that like, time doesn't really exist except for how we see it.
Mhm.
But time is our most precious asset. Like none of us is going to get another day, another moment like we have today. Who are we and how are we going to show up? And so I love the commitment, the decision to shine, right? And it's not that we're being boastful. It's like, no, you were given these gifts. Everybody that is listening, we're given these gifts. And to be, and our subconscious again has, like we talked about it before, but Emerson says, stand guard at the portal of your mind, right?
Mhm.
Because it doesn't have any sense of humor. Whatever you feed it, it says, okay, let's go with that. Wherever we put our attention is where we put our intention. We talked about that a couple of months ago. And so really just tapping into the power that's within us, trusting the process. Faith is a big part of it, right? And just knowing that anything that feels like a failure, you talked about it earlier, is really just an opportunity, like, well, that didn't work. Or I learned this and this from that. But it's just another opportunity. I want to say something that has been really present for me the last week. And it's called the shiny object syndrome. Are you familiar with that, Dr. Pat?
Totally.
I
I've
just
owned a few.
I didn't realize that there was a name for this thing that where you wanted, like, you do this and then you do this, and because you were talking about focus, right? Commitment, focus, staying the course, not going, oh, maybe that'll help. Maybe I need that. Maybe I need that. Like, just for anybody out there, like that wants to get distracted, there's all kinds of stuff. But if you know that what it is yours to do in this lifetime is yours to do, and you've got this passion, this burning desire in your heart to do this work, then you got to do it. And there are going to be setbacks. Like, yeah, there's going to be disappointments. There are going to be conditions that aren't our preferences, because we have to deal with those conditions and the circumstances and the facts of our lives. We need those, but we have this higher power, the sixth sense, right? The intuition, just like you tapped into it, and then you see
Yeah.
the results. So
Yeah.
it's powerful, powerful work.
Yeah. I love, so setbacks, here's the deal with a setback. Setback is really a setup for the right action you're supposed to take. See, if
That's
you
what
got a setback, you got a setback because what you're doing or how that's going on for you right there is just something a little bit off with that. But it forces you to deep and dive in and tap into your intuition. We've talked about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then to find partners in believing, right? To
You
find somebody to
must.
get the support system. We think that remember how shocked I was when I found out some of the people that I've been working with that are really at the top of their game, that they also have coaches. It's like, what? Like,
I have 5 of them.
you don't just get them. Like, once you're at that level, like you
No,
get it. It's like, no. So
no.
for all of us, right? It's not a one and done. Like, we all need the support, the reminders. For us. I want to talk about my favorite, one of my quotes that just it's inspiring. There's the Thoreau quote. I think we have just a couple minutes left. But this is Henry David Thoreau, and he says, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams, endeavoring, not trying, but endeavoring to live life they are imagining, One passes an invisible boundary and meets with a success unexpected in common hours. This is the blue out of the blue. All sorts of things begin to occur that otherwise never would have occurred. New, more universal liberal laws begin to establish themselves around that person, or the old laws are rearranged. Just imagine, are rearranged in one's favor. Nevertheless, one begins to live with the license of a higher order of being. Powerful. What a great code to live by. And then Emerson says, no planet, sun or star could hold you if you but knew who you are.
Yeah.
No planet, sun, or star could hold you if you but knew who you are. What a
Thank you for
powerful,
today. Thank you
powerful.
for a wonderful show. Again, tell people how they can find out more about you, but also how they can work with you.
Yeah, just send me a DM or a text message. 843-340-5083 is my number. But go to Grace and Ease Life Coaching. You'll find out the different programs that I'm certified to work with you at. Also, if you just want to set up a strategy session, a discovery session to explore and to dive deep into what you would love, let's do that. And let's have you living the life that you absolutely love, designing it with grace and with ease. Grace and Ease Life Coaching is my business. I love what I'm doing. Thank you,
And I want
Dr.
to
Pat.
remind everybody here, Donusia has put together a fabulous show. Please go back and listen to this. Why? Dream big, act boldly, and ditch
Ditch
the
the
how.
how. Yay.
Thank you, Donusia. Emily,
Thank
thank
you,
you for
Dr. Pat.
pushing all the right buttons. And thank you all for being the best audience on the planet. We love you, love you, love you. We'll see
Love
you
you.
next time.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for watching the Living Your Genius show, Unlocking Your Power Within, with me, Donusia Lipinski, and Dr. Pat on TransformationTalkRadio.com. We are here every fourth Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific for practical insights, inspiring stories, and actionable steps to unlock your full potential and manifest the life of your dreams. Your journey to living your genius awaits. For more information on how to design the life you deserve and unlock the power within to live a genius life, visit graceandeaselifecoaching.com. That's graceandeaselifecoaching.com. See you next time.